But more broadly, in the context of networking, it's just this idea that we all need to look after each other. And generally speaking, nice people get ahead because they surround themselves with other nice people who are willing to, sort of elevate them and sort of help each other.
My name is Peter Simpson, and you're listening to the Marketing Study Lab podcast, the podcast that gives you actionable marketing knowledge, getting you and your marketing in the best possible shape to be the driving force of your business for long-term success. From strategy and tactics to practical application, we've got it all covered. If you'd like to support the show, it'd be fantastic if you could leave a 5-star Apple Podcast review or get in touch. Especially if you have a burning marketing question, I'd love to chat it through with you. Email me, peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. There's a link in the show notes if you can't be bothered searching on LinkedIn. So what are we going to learn, and who's on Marketing Study Lab today? Networking and events can be both difficult to arrange and for some, even harder to attend and get value out of them. So it's time to meet Joe Glover, the founder of the Marketing Meetup, a community where marketers listen, learn, meet, and share knowledge through events and workshops that Joe himself puts on. The Marketing Meetup was created only 4 years ago and now has a community of over 11,000 people in the UK and the US, with nearly 150 events occurring throughout 2019. That is some effort. But before we get into how to get the best out of an event, or even put one on yourself, I thought this would be the opportune time to ask that most important of questions. Joe, what is your favourite type of mic? Handheld, Lapel, or and the mechanics?
So for me, it has to go to the lapel mic. Of course, the lapel mic. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you why it isn't the handheld. And the handheld mic problem is one that you find with any person, regardless of whether they're a pro or otherwise, which is that nobody keeps it to their mouth consistently throughout the course of a talk. It is amazing the amount of people who just start throwing this bloody handheld mic all over the place, and nobody can hear what they say. The lapel mic, it's nice and easy, but it does have its downfalls. The first big downfall is that awkward interaction where it's like, hey, do you mind sticking this down your top? Which is just like the worst thing ever, but it's also like quite a nice icebreaker, particularly if you don't know the speaker really, really well. You can sort of say, hey, I'll leave you to do that, and you can both sort of smile at that.
That's cool.
And of course, the old lapel mic rustle that goes on when it's brushed against the clothes or against, just against clothes. Then Christ, that's a real killer as well. But apart from those two drawbacks, lapel mic all the way.
Yeah, cool. You find it with if they're using the old Apple headphones, yes, and they've got earrings on or something around there, then that keeps hitting it, and that can happen when you're recording something like this. But I was told, I went on a course once, and I was told that for the handheld mic, make sure like your thumb is touching your body.
Okay.
And then just don't move. Well, don't move it from that. Don't be too rigid, but make sure your thumb's always touching your body, and then people are going to hear you. And if you move it away, it's like take it back.
Nice. That's a really good bit of advice. I'm sure it's the type of thing that works quite well in theory, and then you get the person that's the most nervous. And of course, with the Apple sort of style of things, then you also get the blokes with beards, who will get the beard rustled, which of course is a nice variation on the clothing rustle. So it's an absolute minefield, my friend.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm glad I only narrowed it down to a couple of options. Be here all day talking about mics, but we don't want to do that. What the audience want to know first and foremost is what brings you to this point in your career. What's your story?
Mm-hmm. So, I'm 27 now, so I've been graduated 5 years. And when I took my first job, it was as an SAP consultant, so not in marketing at all. And I was sold on the promise of earning 100 grand after 5 years, 100 grand a year after 5 years. So my sole motivation for taking this job was for the money. But I learned very quickly, and I'm really grateful for learning this lesson, was that money wasn't going to be my motivating factor in life, which is precisely why I went into marketing.
Yep.
The truth is, at the time, I did a business degree, and my gateway drug into marketing as such was social media. So I love social media. I still love LinkedIn in particular. That's my bag. I absolutely love LinkedIn.
Yep.
I'd like writing, and interacting with people. So while I was an SAP consultant, I was still blogging about marketing. So, it gave me an indication that was the place for me. I was fortunate enough to get my first job as a solo marketer in a 3-person company, marketing conferences in the United States and Europe. And it was a reasonable gig, to be fair. I mean, we were selling £2,500 conference tickets, and it was a very exclusive event. But I was so lucky that the speakers at this event were people like Seth Godin, Rand Fishkin, people like Joanna Wiebe, who's like the most amazing copywriter. So like in my first marketing job, I was exposed to some of the most amazing marketing minds, which was a real privilege. And, I'm grateful for their lessons, today. So while that was going on, I wanted to back my marketing learning a little bit more and also meet other marketers because I wasn't getting that stimulation in my job. So the Marketing Meetup just started as like a hobby during that time, an opportunity to meet people and learn about marketing. But layered into that was this idea that I'm far more introverted than I am extroverted. I'm okay one-on-one, but sort of that conversation, which is in the group, my voice isn't loud and I'm a bit scared. So, it's not a nice thing. So I just created this event, the Marketing Meetup, just on a bit of a whim with no real intention behind it other than, to meet those goals. And the odd thing that happened was like 50 people attended the first event in Cambridge, which was just in a servery, few drinks, few bit of food and 2 speakers. And like 50 people came along and I was like, well, this is all right. So we'll carry on. So carried on. And like over the course of time, people just sort of really engaged with the values of the Marketing Meetup more than anything. We're a community. We look to help each other. We're just looking to elevate one and each other and learn together. It's much like this podcast, really. Everything about it is just for the community and collectively learning. So over the course of time, a series of people said, hey, I like this thing, but I'd like to do it closer to my house. So we're now at 14 locations, I think, and about 140 events in the next year. So, it's just one of these things that's really snowballed over the course of time. And I've been privileged enough that 6 months ago, I was able to take it full time, which was, quite lovely as well.
Yeah.
So, it's been a mad journey in terms of taking it for the money, having a great experience, but fixing a need, and then, having a real privilege to be able to do something that I love, and in the spirit of just helping one another really.
That's really cool. I love that story. It's brilliant, especially because you started off your career not in marketing and then suddenly realized marketing is the way everyone should go.
Well, yeah, I mean, no, I think a lot of people who are marketers probably shouldn't be, but maybe that's a story for another day.
Yes, sorry. Let me rephrase that. Everybody should learn and understand how to do marketing correctly. Yeah,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I think it's a real great mindset to have, actually. And more than anything, I heard a quote from Rory Sutherland the other day, which said that marketing is the lens of the customer in a company, which means to say that we really should be the champion of customers in any given company. And that sort of struck a chord with me because that's exactly what we should be doing. But I think it's very easy to get lost in sort of the tactics and stuff like that. But when you really focus in on the customer and the people you're trying to help, then magic happens. And that's the thing I love about it.
Yeah, the magic, absolutely, and it is all magic. So the Marketing Meetup's your bag.
Yeah.
How do you go about putting on an event like Marketing Meetup or Marketing Meetup itself?
So I can speak about both because, in fact, it's incredibly easy. And I say this because, there isn't anything um, magic in the mechanics of running an event. You need to find a venue. And for me, all our venues are free to use because we're a community event. So the people that we tend to approach are people like co-working spaces, places like Redgate Software. So they've got a need that they're constantly looking to hire great marketers in the area. So it makes sense to get a whole bunch of them into their beautiful building and sort of say, hey, oh, by the way, you can work here as well. So generally speaking, the venue is the hardest part. So we work with WeWork a lot and Central Working previously, and also people like Redgate. So, there's a real mix in terms of the venues, but that's the hardest part. After that, the stuff like the food and drink, is, generally speaking, I try to get healthy food where possible, although sometimes it's easier just to get pizza.
Yeah.
And, which I actually hate doing, but it is the type of thing which, when you're running a low cost event like I am, it's a realistic option that most people could afford to, get 12 pizzas in and that'd be that. Generally speaking, a mixture of beers and sort of soft drinks goes a long way as well. And we've started to get a lot more requests for gluten-free food and vegan food. So it's just been mindful of stuff like that. Speakers, generally speaking, are very easy to find. In fact, a little too easy to find because that's my dog getting up, for those of you who are watching the video. So speakers are a little bit too easy to find because people are very happy to give talks. So generally speaking, I've used the Marketing Meetup as my own cheat code to marketing. So when I felt like I've wanted to learn something about marketing or find, a way to do it better, I found the expert doing the thing that I want to learn about, and then I've just asked them to come and speak.
Brilliant.
Which has been a great way to sort of fast track my own learning. But generally speaking, I feel like if I have a problem, then someone else probably is too. And it's amazing that even if you ask for that kind of feedback on what should I be having at the next event, the amount of people just sort of say, "Well, carry on doing what you're doing. We quite enjoy it, so we will trust you," type of thing. And then the final thing is marketing, which I guess is what everyone is sort of here. It probably does. So for me, we use a combination of Meetup.com and Eventbrite, and we lean very heavily on those two platforms, and have done since the beginning. We've since added, all the channels that you'd expect. So email marketing, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook group. We've got a podcast as well. But really, the bulk of our marketing still remains via email, either via Meetup or through our MailChimp list. So Meetup.com has the real advantage, for those of you who haven't used it before, of being a really great discovery platform. So you can set an event up on there very easily. Just call it the Marketing Meetup. Don't call it the Marketing Meetup. That's really
Yeah.
But you can set up the group very easily. And the advantage here is that if I use the example of Cambridge, which was the first event, after a couple of weeks, I had 100 members, in the group, and that's when it kind of gave me the confidence to sort of feel like, there's something here. But had I put it up on an independent website that I spun out myself, I would have had to do all the SEO, I would have had to start setting up a list and all that sort of stuff. And that momentum would have taken an awful lot more time to reach. So Meetup.com has a fantastic advantage of being really discoverable because people are already on it and looking for events. I mentioned Eventbrite because we're actually moving away from using Meetup now. The community is 11,500 strong, so we've already got a solid base of people in the community. And Meetup is owned by WeWork. Now, WeWork have been brilliant to us in terms of hosting our events, but there's a certain amount of volatility there at the moment. And you can read the news about that if you want to. So now it's my livelihood, now it's my business. We have to take certain steps just to make sure that we're safeguarding ourselves, but also improving the experience of the people that are coming along. So the advantage of Eventbrite is that you can set up an event on there, but you can also customize the questions that people fill out on sign up. The advantage here is that you can get in a whole lot more data. So you can understand what people's job titles are, what company they work for, whether they want to sign up for your email list, and whether they're happy for your name to be shared with the other attendees on the night. That's the type of thing where, it just takes the event to the next level, because we're able to gear everything around the people who are attending, rather than just assuming, I'm a marketer, so my problems are their problems, and actually look to sort of create that environment which is really beneficial. That also helps for partnership discussions. So when you're looking to pay for the event, because my events are free to attend, I can go to a sponsor and say, rather than just saying I've got 150 people coming, I can say I've got 150 people coming, and these are their job titles, so these are the type of people that you'll be exposed to. And it just makes it a far better conversation. And I know that I've asked those same questions as a marketing manager previously. So yeah, that's how you go about setting up an event.
That's excellent. It sounds like a bit of proper marketing going on there.
Yeah.
which is always good to see.
Yeah.
I suppose, and this might not be correct, but
Mhm.
wouldn't it be easier to do something like this, to have a bit of a meetup where everyone gathers online and have these types of discussions? And if not, why is it so important to have the types of interactions you get offline at things like the Marketing Meetup?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really good question. And I think you probably get about 80% of the value, particularly in a one-on-one scenario, like the conversation that we had before we went live. That was a really valuable conversation. I got the emotional reaction from it. We could see each other smiling, etc. That was really good. But the thing is, I'm a big hugger, so like I want to. No, I do love giving hugs, but I mean, the thing is that you still lose that 20%, and you still lose that spontaneity of someone walking by you and they went to school with you, or the opportunity to pick up the subtleties. I could be wearing nothing at all beneath this screen, and you wouldn't know. And I am, but I mean, it's all this stuff that you know you miss out on all that sort of subtlety and humanity, which is really captured in a moment in a real person event. I think more than that, there's a bit of um, an obligation almost to an attender when you're attending a in-person event, to sort of engage with the person in front of you. When you and I are speaking here, I've still got notifications pinging at me and stuff like that, which it just feels a bit sad. So 8-10 years ago, I'm pretty sure that there was a shift between where people wanted to have online events because they thought it'd be the future. But I think people realized quite quickly, actually, there's just still something very special about getting together as people, sharing an experience, being somewhere where they're not, eating, drinking together, smiling, hugging, wearing trousers, all these things, they're all really important.
I'm definitely not coming to the next Marketing Meetup. I thought it was a no trouser policy. So that's me out, I'm afraid.
Yeah, damn it. Yeah, I mean, you can try it if you like, mate. I mean,
imagine, that'd be brilliant. But yeah, I think you're right. If you say so, if we're having this conversation and you look at my screen, and I'm like, yeah, it just, you're not going to do that in real life, are you? If someone's doing that, you're like, clearly got something more important to do on your phone, so I'll leave you to it.
For sure, absolutely. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in person either. I mean, I think we've all had conversations where we've been sat and the first thing someone does is put their phone on the table in front of them, and it's not a nice thing. The same with meetings. The amount of meetings I've had where people's laptops have been open and then they're all working away while you're in a meeting. It's like, what's the point? But I do think there's still something very human about just sharing the experience, and I think you get more of that effect if it's in person versus online.
Yeah, I agree. Just final note on that. Although I know you're not wearing trousers, I know you are wearing an emu suit underneath it, because I have seen it pecking in the background every now and again. So. And there's a little tip for your next Marketing Meetup as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
So speaking of tips for attending the Marketing Meetup, are there any that you can provide listeners to maximize the time they get at these types of events?
Mm-hmm. So we speak about three values for the marketing meetup, and I think these are probably the best bits of advice that I've got as well.
Mm.
Um, and we reinforce these in our marketing. We reinforce these at the beginning of our events. The three values are listen, say hello, and be positively lovely. The reason why each one of these are important, I'll spend a moment speaking about each, if that's okay.
Of course.
The first thing is listening. So when we go to events, I think there's a real pressure to sort of feel like you're the cleverest person in the room. When you're in a conversation with someone new, I feel like you have to show that you know everything that they're talking about,
Mm.
and it's almost a moment of fear when they say, "Oh, do you know this company?" And you have to admit that you don't. Shock horror. You don't know every company in the world.
Yeah.
But that fear of not being the cleverest person in the room is debilitating to not only your capacity to network, but also debilitating to the quality of your conversation, because each of you are just trying to one up each other throughout
Hmm.
the course of the conversation. You exchange business cards at the end, and neither of you have gained anything from it. So what we encourage people to do is listen. So by that we mean, like, when you're in a conversation, actively listen to what the person's saying in front of you. So if they say they've got a cat, bring that into the conversation, and respond to the thing that the person is saying, rather than thinking about the thing that you're going to say next. And it's amazing how that conversation shifts away from me to, hey, we've got that moment of common ground. And even though there's a visual cue of here but behind you, if you'd mentioned that you're a Liverpool fan, which is most unfortunate because I like you in so many other ways, then that would you know that would be a lift off for the rest of the conversation, because it's really, really hard to have these conversations with people who you've never met before. And
Hmm.
the only way that you're going to have a decent conversation is by picking up on those cues and saying, "Oh, wait, I've got that in common with you as well," rather than thinking, "Oh, I need to be better than you." The second thing is say hello. And the reason why that's important, and I say that this from my own experience, is that I am 100% that guy in networking scenarios who stands on his phone in the corner of the room, um, being terrified, that people just being terrified to sort of approach those groups and circles of people that form at networking events. And it's horrible. So I encourage people like me to say hello and muster up the courage that it takes to approach a group like that, and say hello. And that is literally the hardest word in networking. Hello
Hmm.
is the hardest word in networking. Um, but on the flip side, if you are a bit more confident, the thing that I encourage people to do is go and say hello to that person on the phone in the corner. Because they're probably a bit nervous, but it doesn't mean that they don't have something valuable to say.
Mm.
So it's amazing that once you shift that dynamic to saying, everyone in this room, you've got permission to say hello to anyone else in this room, rather than placing some weird expectation, making and this is a tip for event organizers more than anything. I've attended networking events which have been held in nightclubs with really loud music and you can't see anyone and stuff like that. And it's terrible, because that's a really terrifying situation to try and approach someone. The final thing is be positively lovely. And the idea behind this very much is, like, in the marketing meetup, we use it in the context of the marketing meetup as a community. So we look after each other. But more broadly, in the context of networking, it's just this idea that we all need to look after each other. And generally speaking, nice people get ahead because they surround themselves with other nice people who are
Mm.
willing to, sort of elevate them and sort of help each other. So being positively lovely, it's just about being open, being kind, being responsive, being present, as we've spoken about, um, and combining all these things into a moment where you're actually just enjoying the interaction rather than thinking about the next thing. So, yeah, my three bits of advice: go into a networking event, listen to everyone that you're speaking to, say hello to as many people as possible, and just be positively lovely. Um, I'll add a little PS here, which is
Hmm.
that the thing that people seem to really have sort of grabbed onto is this concept of not selling. Um, and I think it's probably getting better and better over the course of time as more people are sort of like panning it. But people come to networking events with the intention of getting 10 business cards, or
Yeah.
with the intention of gaining X amount of sales, or justifying the ROI of whatever on the basis of sales directly attributed to a specific event. I just think that's so misplaced, because I think people don't buy. It's like a relationship with a partner. You know, my wife didn't marry me after our first date. She didn't marry me after the first time we met. You know, we took the time to get to know each other. And then we realized over the course of time that actually we thought each other were all right, you know, and we sort of, you know, it was generally okay, you know, so
Yeah.
we decided to spend more time together, and eventually we took that plunge. And I think business relationships are exactly the same in that way.
Yeah, I love that analogy. On one of my presentations, I've got a little cartoon, and it's what's her name? I think it's Maureen, and she's turned
Right.
up in a wedding dress to a first date. And it's like, you
Nice.
don't want to do that. You know, you don't want to be that person that goes in and says, bye from me. And if anyone wants to test that theory, just
Yeah.
go on LinkedIn or sign up to LinkedIn, connect with a bunch of people, and then try and
Yeah.
sell to them straight away and see how far you get. It won't be very
100%.
far.
100%. No, you're so right. It's and actually I think the sort of zeitgeist now is that it's actually an actively bad thing to do, never mind just a slightly ignorable thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. Another part of what you do is put on workshops, slightly
Mhm.
different to the meetups, if you like. So what makes a good or great workshop?
I'm figuring this out at the moment, you
Okay.
know, and it's like we said this before we went on air, you know, I'm making this up as much as anyone
Don't
else
tell
is. So.
people. Come on.
No, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, I don't.
With you.
I'm doing my best to make it up, you know, and so is everyone, you know,
Yeah.
and you learn from experiences, but also you make up the next best step that you think will improve something. What I've learned so far is that a workshop, so we charge for our workshops, so there's a different dynamic at play straight away. It's not a free event, it's a paid event. So there's an implication that there's a high level of service. Further to this, instead of having 150 people in the room, I have a maximum of 12 people in the room
Hmm.
for workshops. So their experience can be really personalized. One of the things that we do beforehand, it starts well before. Um, so presuming you've already got your topic and your speaker and the venue sorted, one of the things that we do straight away is we send out a survey before the event saying, is there anything specific that you would like to get from this workshop that we can perhaps work into it? Which immediately takes away that anxiety that the people that are coming along aren't necessarily going to get what they want from the event,
Mm.
which is really important. Further to this, one of the things that I've been doing a lot more of recently is personalized videos in emails. So, like, because there's 12 people in the room, I spend half an hour just making very quick intro videos to the workshop, just saying, you know, hey, you know, very much looking forward to seeing you. You know, if there's any questions, etc., etc. It just humanizes it, you know, and sort of takes away any sort of anxiety about attending an event. They feel
Mm.
like they already know someone there in the room, which is going to be really important because people need to feel like it's a safe environment where they can ask questions and sort of, you know, appear stupid, quote unquote, because you know they want to learn that little bit of thing. You know, they want to get better at the thing that you're asking. Um, I think the other part of this is just working really tightly with your lecturer, with your speaker, with your organizer to make sure that the course content is exactly what you want it to be. If you've got 4 hours to fill and you feel like an hour of it is a bit crap, that's a shame, you know, and it's a missed opportunity. So with my workshop speakers in particular, unless they're a regular sort of lecturer or workshop
Mm.
leader, I'll work with them more than I would a typical marketing meetup speaker to understand, you know, okay, how are you going to take this? How are you going to incorporate a practical element, stuff like that. The other, the only other element that I think is quite important is on the day. Um, you know, it's a small touch, but stuff like seeing what the food and drink is like.
Hmm.
You know, because the workshops that we run are typically 4 hours long, so that's a long time for someone to have to try and stay engaged. So we do just like a snacks break, like halfway through, which I know it doesn't sound like a big thing, but you can almost feel, the energy sort of go down, 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 as it naturally would. And then you have a break and people are like, yes, okay, I'm re-engaged, and that's, I know it sounds like a small, stupid little thing, but if you can get that element right, it's just one of those little touches which really makes a difference to the overall experience of an event for people coming along.
I think it's massive. It's huge, and food and drink and those types of things. It can be massively underestimated because, like
100%.
we were saying before, is you try and put healthy food on, but pizza is usually the more viable option, which is fine
Yes.
and great. But if you go to a meeting, it might be an hour, 2 hours, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
and there'll be tea, there'll be coffee,
Yeah.
there'll be water,
Yeah.
there'll be biscuits, or if
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
morning, there'll be patisseries,
Yeah.
and where's the fruit? Where's
Yeah.
the where's the other
100%.
options? And
Yeah.
it's those things. Yeah, don't get me wrong. 90% of it is what you're learning. That's what you're there to do. But the
100%.
other 10%, or like you saying, the 20% of that human interaction, the 20% of putting on that workshop event or whatever, is the other parts that aren't the actual event, the food, the drink, that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
100%. 100%. And on that, I mean, stuff like how you welcome people when they come in the room,
Hmm.
and set the energy, from the first moment, this is a really positive thing. This is an opportunity to learn. We're in this together. I know it all sounds a bit like, well, I think you said it far better than I did. That 20%, is the difference between, something anyone could do versus something only you could do.
Yeah.
And if you're particularly good at events, that's the 20% where you sort of gain a community and you gain a following of people who genuinely love what you do versus are a bit ambivalent to it.
And everything being equal, say you had the same speaker, two different events, and somebody went to both,
Yeah.
and they said, "Oh, what's it like?" Somebody
Yeah.
said, "Well, yeah, speak was amazing, learnt loads.
Hmm.
Food was a bit crap."
Yeah.
Or they go to the other event. Yeah, speaker was amazing, learnt loads, and the food it was brilliant. The choice
Yeah.
was amazing. You can
Yeah.
probably be like, okay, yeah, I get that. I know I'm going for the speaker, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of puts my mind at ease because I know I don't have to take any food. I'm a stickler for my food, so I'll take a lunchbox anywhere. I look like an
Really.
absolute geek, and I love it. But I'll be
Yeah.
walking around with my lunchbox because I know that it's going to be crappy cheap sandwiches, cakes, biscuits, chocolate, which might sound like heaven to most people, but I want something healthy. I want to look after myself. I'm getting old now. I need these things to sustain
No.
some kind of energy.
No, it's so true. You don't want people sort of peaking like halfway through the event and then being on a trough for the rest of it,
Yeah.
and more than that, I guess it also shows that you care about people, right?
Mm,
If you show that you care about their health and their well-being by saying, yeah, I'm not saying it has to be different types of grains and all that sort of stuff, but just a bit of consideration goes a long, long way.
yeah, absolutely. So, what do you think the future of events might be? What should we be looking to do to put on better events or events in the future?
I think if I reflect on the future events, I've also got to reflect on what the present day trend is.
Mm,
And the present day trend that I see is of generally a really encouraging and healthy event scene
mhm,
where people are becoming more and more adverse to that sort of old school sales event, that old school turn up in a tie and a suit and sort of introduce yourself as job title from Megacorp, but as Joe from the Marketing Meetup or whatever it may be, and sort of it feels like there's a trend of sort of more humanizing uh, going on. I think, generally speaking, when I think about events more generally, I think there's going to be a bit more of an experiential edge to things. I think certainly where the Marketing Meetup is, that when I started it 3 years ago, a couple of speakers networking at the beginning and end was certainly in the areas we operated it, a little bit not revolutionary. It
mm.
wasn't reinventing the wheel, but it was something that people hadn't necessarily experienced in that kind of way before. But I think as people become more used to those experiences and more people share the same values, the extra 20% is going to come from, how can we elevate this experience to the next level? What can we get attendees doing that they've never done before? How can we change their perspective? That could come from speakers and speaker formats, so doing panels or whatever. But I think more than that, I think there's an experiential edge. What's the set design at, an event? What's the ticket experience look like? What's the confirmation email look like? How can we make this not just an event, but an event, in capital letters, and sort of move it to that next level. I think while I've said that, there probably is also a trend here, and I've sort of touched upon it when I mentioned the context we're operating in now, which is just more humanizing. People are looking after each other at events a little bit more. There's a lot more diversity, but equally, it feels like on that diversity trend, there's a lot more equality. People can feel more welcome, regardless of who they are, walking into these environments, and I hope with less fear. And I think that's a really strong thing that everyone seems to be pushing more and more for, which is wonderful, and long may it continue. There's probably going to be some really exciting stuff coming out of the event scene in the next few years, because people are pining for that humanity, and pining to sort of meet each other and enjoy it,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think it's a really positive place to be at the moment.
More human events. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. So, Joe, this is kind of new to Marketing Study Lab, and anyone listening, there's a video which replicates what you're listening to right now. But for this practical element within this part of the podcast or the video, I'm just going to ask Joe to take us through one particular element that he does very well for what he does for a living, basically. So, Joe, I'm going to hand the screen over to you.
Fabulous. Cool. So I'm actually going to come out of the screen because that's not the one I want. So I'm going to speak you through just very quickly about starting an event on Eventbrite. The reason being is that that's where we're moving our events over to.
Okay.
So it seems to make sense to use this platform rather than Meetup.com. Meetup.com, for those people who do want to use it, is very easy to use. It's quite intuitive, so I really don't think you'll struggle with it at all. And likewise with Eventbrite, I mean, these things have been geared to be used by the every person rather than just marketers. So I don't think you'd have too many problems at all. But in either case, I'll run you through this because there's a few little things that are unique to Eventbrite, which are probably worth considering.
So this is where I have to interject for a second and say that me and Joe took the decision, because his explanation is very, very visual, to keep it purely as a video. So if you want to see Joe take you step by step through how to set up the perfect event on Eventbrite, just follow the link in the show notes, or you can go to marketingstudylab.co.uk/Eventbrite, and that's EVENTBRITE. Now, back to the regular podcast. Final part of this little chat is from comprehensive to quickfire questions, if you're ready for these.
Wait.
Excellent.
Go for it.
Name one must-read business book.
Can I do two? Very quickly.
Go ahead, go on.
You're so disappointed there. If I was to do one, Seth Godin, This Is Marketing. Is my favorite marketing book of all time. I feel like every other word, he's just sort of turned my world upside down. The other one that I've just finished reading is Alchemy by Rory Sutherland. Likewise, I feel like Rory Sutherland is one of these people that you can listen to for hours, feel like you've had your world turned upside down, but then also simultaneously forget everything you've learned from him because it's so mind-boggling. So, like, that's a great one that you could listen to again and again and again.
Cool. What was the last thing you Googled?
So you might be able to see my camera set up behind me. So I got that as my little present to myself over Christmas. Hopefully my LinkedIn videos will be a lot better this year as a result of it. So I've got a little light and camera set up. So I was just figuring out how to use my camera, basically.
I was doing that yesterday. Slightly different, not new camera, but I was doing it yesterday with this thing. So
nice. Oh,
yeah.
is that the which one is it? Okay, I've got one very similar, but those gimbals are a pain in the ass because they flop all over the place and you don't know how to use them. So
yeah. I didn't realize it was going to be powered and everything, but yeah, it is quite cool. But I'm still getting used to it. So
yeah. It's
really cool.
Yeah. No, they're really good. They're really impressive bits of tech.
So what would be your one tip for people who are studying?
So for me, I learned my lesson early on that money wasn't going to be the thing that motivated me. And, layered into that was the idea that I wasn't being myself because I was just chasing money. I wasn't chasing the thing that would ultimately I would be able to find joy in.
Yeah.
So, it's the cliche thing, but it's literally just, whatever you feel in your gut is right, it probably is. So not that there's lessons, not that there's not lessons to be had in having bad experiences, but I think if you follow your gut, then that's absolutely cool. I think it's probably the right way to do things.
So similarly, if you could tell your 10-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
You're all right. You're okay. I don't think, I think I've been lucky that I've had a great life really in many ways. And I think one of the biggest lessons really is just gratitude, and I think it's quite difficult to tell a 10-year-old to be grateful for what they have, but I think just being mindful of those moments is really important.
Yeah, totally agree. So final most important question, and I think people will be mad not to do this, but if they want to find out more about you and the Marketing Meetup, because it gets fully booked straight away, so they need to know this stuff, where should they go?
So you can head to the marketingmeetup.com. There we've got the Wednesday at 2 Club, which is our newsletter. You've got all the events that we run. There'll be 140 in the rest of the year. You've got our workshops. You've got the blog posts. So we record the events and then put them up on there. So, even if you can't get to an event, you can still learn from the people there. And yeah, if you want to find me, get on LinkedIn, Joe Glover. I use it too much.
Yeah. You can't use it too much. Well, you can. That's a massive lie, but yeah, you get the meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing platform. I love it.
Yeah, it is. Joe, thank you so much for doing this today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you for having me.
And thanks once again, Joe, for being part of Marketing Study Lab. And I wish you all success through 2020 with the Marketing Meetup. I'm sure both myself and the listeners will see you at one of your events very, very soon. So what are my takeaways from that really interesting chat with Joe? Well, first of all, it was that Joe kindly went through what is needed to get the best out of an event, both arranging one and going to one. So firstly, arranging. You need to find a venue, make it decent, and one you can work with and alongside. Remember the food. You don't have to do the standard, be different, but offer something people actually want to eat and drink. Remember the speakers. You won't be short of people who want to speak, but a good tip is to ask those you yourself actually want to learn from. That way, you'll get the best out of your own event. And finally, the marketing. Please don't forget that. Know your audience and make it easy to sign up and attend. Just make sure you get the right time, date, and location on any kind of e-sign up that you've got going on. So secondly, if you're going to an event, remember the 3 Marketing Meetup mantras. Listen, say hello, and be positively lovely. Who doesn't want more of that in your life? If you see me or Joe, or any of the wonderful Marketing Meetup or Marketing Study Lab families, do the last 2, and we'll happily do the first one. Thank you so much for joining us today on Marketing Study Lab. It really means the world that you're listening to this out there. And hopefully I've provided you some value. If you're looking to know more about what Marketing Study Lab does and is about, go to marketingstudylab.co.uk or get in touch with me personally, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or feel free to email me at peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Happy marketing.